To introduce our speaker this morning, we have Lee Ann Pessoney. She is a cybersecurity program lead with Madison City Schools in Alabama. And Lee Ann has a passion for empowering her students through knowledge, and she does it both in the classroom and outside of the classroom in cyber camps and other things of that sort. So she's a great instructor, and we're excited to have her today. So please join me in welcoming Lee Ann Pessoney.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Like Alan said, my name is Lee Ann Pessoney, and I'm from Madison, Alabama. I teach cybersecurity classes, Cybersecurity 1 and 2, and IT fundamentals, and the occasional computer science class, so C programming, if they need me to. So I have been using TestOut for about 3 years, and I love it, and my students love it. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I put this up here because I want to give you a little background of how I got started. I just completed my 4th year of teaching, and teaching was never a goal for me. The job just happened to fall into my lap, and I thought I would take advantage of it. But when I got hired, it was 2 days before school started, and Madison City had wanted to start a cybersecurity program. So I was the person that was going to do that. But getting hired 2 days before school started, I got to my classroom, and I didn't have any computers, and I didn't have any equipment. I did have a projector and internet, but I had no curriculum either, so I had to create the curriculum too. And nobody in central office or the school really spoke my language, of cybersecurity. So I kind of had to start from the bottom. There were lots of days that I thought, I don't even know what I'm doing here, and like, what is happening? So I decided to do this type of presentation just because I really want to help people who maybe have to get started in a cybersecurity class and maybe don't have a lot to go on. And so hopefully this can help kickstart the process for you or anybody that you know. And also just kind of go through some of the research and some of the stuff that I've done and some of the trial and error, so that way you can kind of see what the outcomes were. So before I get started, one of the main high schools that I teach at, I was teaching at both high schools in the district, and one of the main high schools that I teach at, they're called the JC Jets. And Madison City is close to Huntsville, Alabama, and if you've ever been there, it's home to the Space and Rocket Center and NASA and Marshall Space Flight Center, and the Redstone Arsenal, and the FBI Cybercrime Division. They're starting to move a majority of their agents there to the Arsenal. And it's also on the short list for being one of the main locations for Space Command. So at school, we're the Jets, and everything is jet related. Our lunch hour is called refuel. Our bell that tells the kids to change classes, it sounds like a jet taking off, and it tells them to engage their next target, and this flight has landed, that kind of thing. Whenever we have students that are struggling, we have something called jet lag, which stands for learning and growth. So everything is jet related. So I thought, I'm just gonna go with that theme for the program. So we're gonna go ahead and get started on our flight plan. So we have 4 stops today on our flight plan. And the first one is going to be to try to talk about creating your cybersecurity curriculum with Security Pro, because that was one of the main TestOut products that I used for my classroom. That and Network Pro, but Security Pro was one of the main ones. Next, how your students are going to get certified. I'm going to talk about how our students get certified. And so maybe if you haven't started that process yet, it can kind of help you know what kind of questions to ask to get that started. Third, using Security Pro with other cybersecurity curriculum. I've been scouring the internet for the past 4 years, trying to find different things I can integrate into my class. And then also, central office, will add things to my classes that I have to integrate throughout the school year. And then lastly, helpful resources to supplement with Security Pro. So I have some other supplemental tools that I use that help kind of drive it home, the concepts that I'm trying to get across to the students. The first stop creating your cybersecurity curriculum was Security Pro. What I have up here, this is kind of 2 years ago, I kind of got together with central office and we kind of developed a 5-year plan for our cybersecurity program. So this is the flow chart basically that I came up with. This is what I would like to see happen. Right now we don't have that middle school pathway. We just have the IT fundamentals and then the cybersecurity 1 and 2 classes. But eventually we want to add networking 1 through 4. And then we want to add a computer management class to kind of tail off from the IT fundamentals class. So that would be like the second class from IT fundamentals if you were going the hardware route. The middle school is a little slow going, but eventually we want the middle schoolers to be able to get the IT fundamentals requirements so that way when they get to high school, they already have that prerequisite and they can go straight into a Cyber 1 or Networking 1 class. So this is the goal that we have for our cybersecurity program. Obviously, I can't do it all by myself. I was the only cyber teacher in the district up until about a month ago. They finally hired somebody else for the other high school. So we are getting closer to be able to accomplish this particular setup here. But first of all, when I had to kind of get a curriculum together for our classes, our cybersecurity classes, I had to check to see what the state already had in place. And they didn't have a cybersecurity curriculum at all. They did have some course numbers that they had in place, which that was for the IT fundamentals and the networking. And they didn't have a course number that was specifically called cybersecurity, but they called it Principles of Informational Security and then Foundations of Informational Security. And the way our district works, if the state doesn't have a course number for it, then we can't put it in our course catalog for our students. So basically, in parentheses in our course catalog next to Principles of Informational Security, we just put Cybersecurity 1, that kind of thing. So our state also has certain equipment requirements that you have to have. They come and they check your program. It was every 5 years, but I think they're starting to do something different. But they come and check your program and they make sure that you have all these certain requirements. And one of the requirements is if you are teaching that particular class, you have to have certain equipment in there. It makes it easier when you're trying to ask for equipment to be bought from your central office because they know it's a requirement. But sometimes what they require is not necessarily what you're going to use. But it's good to go check the state because they might have a little bit of a course of study for that particular course, and they might require a certain type of equipment to be in that classroom. They didn't have a curriculum for my classes, so I was able to kind of implement what I wanted to put in there and also what the students in the schools were looking for that class. Creating the curriculum can be kind of confusing because you first need to figure out, what do I want this class to be? I've noticed that throughout the education circuit, everybody has a different idea about what exactly cybersecurity is. I've gone to some cyber camps and they think that cybersecurity is just maybe internet safety. So you kind of have to decide, what do I want this class to actually be? When I first got started, they just had a Cyber 1 class. There was no prerequisite to take that. And so the first year first 2 years, it was just that Cyber 1 class. I realized once we got started that there needed to be a more basic class. And so I pushed to get the IT Fundamentals class added to the course catalog. So now we have IT Fundamentals as a prerequisite, and I'm getting a lot more interest in the program because I've added that class. I found that not having those basic content area to get the kids started can kind of scare them into not wanting to continue on into the program. So having that IT Fundamentals class really helped boost enrollment for my other classes too. Okay, so once you're in the classroom and you kind of have an idea about some of the requirements the state has, what your district is looking for, you kind of need to figure out, what do I want my students to know at the end of my class? What do I want them to have accomplished? And so this is a question that I asked myself just because I felt like I couldn't really write the curriculum if I didn't really know what I wanted the kids to know at the end of it. And if they were going to pursue other classes in the program, what is it that I wanted them to know before they got to those other classes, and how would they relate to each other? So with my class, I felt like I wanted to go more the certification route instead of just exposing them to cybersecurity concepts. I know some classes just want to expose them to the terminology and to the concepts, but don't really have certifications in mind. But our district and our school are really pushing career readiness indicators, which were certifications for all of the career tech students. So I figured I would just try to centralize the curriculum around the Security Plus objectives. And so that's where Security Pro came in, because I had used a CISSP version of TestOut when I was getting my master's in cybersecurity a couple of years before this, and I knew that I really liked the way that it was set up with the virtual labs, and you had the notes and all of that stuff. So I looked into Security Pro for my classes and was able to convince the district to buy it for my classes. And also TestOut was beginning to try to push to have their certifications as part of the CRIs for the state. So that kind of helped too, because it was going to help the students get credentialed more, and it would already be included in the price of the Security Pro license. So it was a win-win. And we have a virtualized environment, so all the students have a virtualized desktop. So it was great that it was web-based and we didn't have to have any software installed, because all of the computers we had were thin clients at the time. So it was a really great, easy way to implement this resource into my classroom. Another thing I had to determine for my class, since I had Security Pro now in place, was, do I want my class to be direct instruction, or do I want it to be more student-led, because now they have Security Pro and they can kind of go through it themselves. But I had to check with my school, because they have certain requirements that they want the teachers to have set in place in their classroom when they come in to observe you. And they like to see more direct instruction, and we have to have our essential question up every day and our learning target, and those are things that they look for, and they come in randomly to check. So I knew that I had to put other types of resources into place and help make it more engaging for the students. So I kind of had this big curriculum filled with different resources, but they're all centralized around Security Pro, because Security Pro was centralized around the Security Plus objectives. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how our students get certified. I know some of you probably are already, on a certification path with your students, but if you're not, hopefully this will help you ask the right kinds of questions for your district or your school. So the first thing that we did was we became a CompTIA Academy partner. And if you're not an Academy partner already, it's really a great a great organization to be a part of because it's free, but you also get discounted vouchers for the certifications. I want to say it's like 30 to 40% off, which is huge when they start getting Security Plus and Net Plus and things like that, and especially A Plus since you have to pass both of those tests. So you become a CompTIA partner, and once I did that, then you can become a proctor with Pearson VUE. This is only for the IT Fundamentals exam. So you can buy a site license at the discounted price, and then you can proctor that IT Fundamentals exam in your class. It's kind of a process. You have to get parent consent if they're under 18, and so you have to make sure you get those parent consent forms out, and they have these other processes. But it makes it so much easier to get your kids credentialed, especially the younger ones who can't drive to another testing site to take the exam. And it's really encouraging for the 9th and 10th graders, when they're just getting started and trying to figure out their path. And then they go and they can pass the certification exam, and they just feel really empowered that, I might sign up for the next class, So it's great for them to kind of have that certificate, and even though they're in the 9th and 10th grade. So you get a lot of benefits with being a CompTIA partner. You get posters, you get stuff. I just got one day a just big a cylinder of just posters that I could put up in my room. They have some other research and some case studies that they send you, so you can talk to the kids about that. Another cool thing is that if you buy over $500 worth of vouchers, then you, the instructor, will also get a free voucher to take a CompTIA exam. So that's great if you are pursuing more certifications, but you don't want to shell out the money for it. So if you order more than 500, then you get a free voucher for a test that you want to take. So with Madison City, we have to fill out a Excel sheet at the beginning of the year with our school, and we have to anticipate how many certifications we may want to buy. And then the central office will take all that data and they will put it into a grant they will ask the state for, and then the state usually, ever since I've been there, they've always given us the money that we asked for. Then they turn around and they give us the grant money for those certifications. So the students at Madison City get free certifications. Now they only are allowed to buy one, or they can only take one certification exam. If they need to take another one, then they have to pay that out of their pocket. But I usually tell the students that if you think you want to do your A+, or Net Plus, I would go ahead and schedule that test and let the school pay for that one because it's a little bit more expensive. And then if you want to take the IT Fundamentals exam, then you can just, that's something a little bit cheaper that you could pay out of your pocket, or they could ask their parents for, which I've had students do that too. And they get that discounted price through us anyway, so it's not too bad. All right, so our next stop is using Security Pro with other cybersecurity curriculum. And how many of you have heard of the PLTW cybersecurity? Yeah, it's fairly new. I just got an email after I'd kind of written the curriculum for Cyber 1 and Cyber 2 classes. I get an email from the career tech director at central office, and she said, we're moving your Cybersecurity 1 class to PLTW Cybersecurity. And I haven't seen any outline of the course or anything. I just get an email saying we're doing this. So PLTW had the beta version last year, and I went to training, and I was one of the 100 teachers in the US that was testing the beta version of the PLTW Cybersecurity. And so I went, they only had a week of training, and then you had several weeks of embedded training throughout the semester. So as you're using it, you're giving feedback and you're talking to other teachers who are also trying it out. You do have to pay for this. Training for it could be anywhere from like $2,000 to $4,000. The PLTW requires that you have to be trained by them in order to teach their curriculum. It's really great to use in more of like your upper level classes. They promote it as an intro course starting at 10th grade, but what I found when I tested it out that they do have a lot of great concepts, but it can be kind of complex for the very beginner computer users or security users. So there might be a little bit of frustration in getting started in some of those more complex concepts. But what I do like about PLTW is they do have some great labs. Their labs are all virtual machines. You're basically, when you click on the lab, you're connecting to their VM server. I think it's in Texas or something. And so you get to connect to their virtual machines. And last year when we were testing it out, you know, there were some kinks with the VM servers and stuff trying to connect to them. But I think they've got all that worked out now. But when I started using PLTW, I still wanted to use Security Pro, even though PLTW is more project-based, kind of learn as you go, which is great for new teachers that are coming into the cybersecurity concept and aren't really up to speed on some of those more complex concepts that are happening in that curriculum. But I felt like the students still needed some direct instruction on some of the Security Plus objectives, because the only thing with PLTW is that they don't align with the Security Plus objectives at all. So I kind of have to jump around in Security Pro when I'm assigning sections and labs to do whenever we're going through all of the exercises with PLTW. So I have a little screenshot here of what it looks like. I don't have any handouts or anything for PLTW just because, you know, you have to pay for it. But I did have a little screenshot here, and so you can see on the left the different lessons. So it kind of gives you an idea of the type of lessons that are up there. So we only got through the first half because since I did have to teach the concepts before we actually got to the lessons, it slowed us down a little bit. So I'm thinking about maybe splitting it in half, where Cyber 1 is just half the curriculum and then Cyber 2 is the other half. But it kind of gives you like those four main sections there of what it covers. So they do talk about personal security, and we talk about different laws and case studies and things like that. And they have system security, network security, and then applied cybersecurity. All right, so next, using Security Pro with NYSERC, which is a curriculum that was developed by the Department of Homeland Security. And has anybody used this or seen this before? Okay. This is really great. This is what I found my first year when I had no idea what was going on. But this is free. And what you have to do, you kind of sign up for it, and they have to kind of vet you as an educator. They kind of, so you might not get accepted till like maybe 24 or 48 hours later. But once you get accepted, you will be able to access their curriculum. Now, this can be a complete curriculum for your classes if you're equipped to follow everything that they have in their lessons. It's mostly focused towards computer science and like Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and things like that, but they do incorporate cybersecurity into that. So there were a lot of good lessons that I could find and use in my class. But if you also teach computer science, this is great too. They also have higher math in here. So if you're also a math teacher, they also have some great exercises for that too. So I use Security Pro along with NYSERC. Actually, NYSERC is kind of a supplement to Security Pro. So they have some unplugged activities in here that I use with the Security Pro chapters. So in my PLTW class, I basically will map out Security Pro sections with the lessons we're going over, and then I'll use some of the unplugged activities or some of the research activities from NYSERC to kind of add to that. see, there is a screenshot. Once you get accepted, you can click on, so over on this one it showed the different sections that they had there. Once you click on one of those sections, then I just clicked on cyber literacy, and then they had the different ones depending on if you're using Arduino or Bobot. So you can click what you want to do and what you're focused on once you click on the section that you're interested in. And then I just clicked on cyber literacy with liberal arts, and so once you click on that section, you can see where they have links for master notes, so they explain everything to the teacher before you get started. They also have PowerPoints, which is amazing because if you don't have a lot of PowerPoints in your resources, then it has PowerPoints that go along with the master notes. And then they also have worksheets that will go along with the lesson. And if you notice where it says semester exams up there at the top right, they also have exams and quizzes that go along with the lesson. So it can be a complete curriculum if you are equipped to be able to implement all of those lessons, or you can just pick and choose as a supplement to what you're already doing. So this has been really great. They also have research projects that you can do that's already in place for you, and rubrics and all of that. So it was really a time saver for me when I first found it. So if you haven't looked at that at all, I would definitely check it out. So next is going to be Cyber Patriot, and I call it a curriculum because I've known some school districts to actually use Cyber Patriot as a class. And they have PowerPoints and things like that, and so the PowerPoints kind of lead into a lot of the basics of security. So a lot of the intro classes may use those PowerPoints in that curriculum. So Cyber Patriot, if you're not familiar with it, it's a cybersecurity team, and so it's in middle school and high school. So when I was hired, they required me to start these teams at these two high schools that I was working at. And so I have usually 6 to 7 teams a year, but I have teams at both high schools. But it's basically more teaching the kids the defense of cybersecurity, more of like hardening your operating system, having good password policy, account policy, access controls and things like that. This is also free. Not really free. Well, the curriculum can be free, but if you're going to create a team and you're going to have teams, you do have a team fee. Unless it is an all-girl team or an ROTC team, then those teams are free. But the team fee is usually like $200, I think. And if you register their teams early, then it can be, I think it's like 20% off. We have a local cybersecurity firm that pays our team fees for us, so that's really helpful. So it's great because students don't have to have any computer knowledge to join the team because we get to teach them in practice everything they need to know. So they, even if they can't fit my cybersecurity classes into their curriculum or into their courses for the school year, then they can still learn those concepts being on the Cyber Patriot team. So I use Security Pro to help train my teams in practice. I'll set up some of the labs, and a lot of times I'll go over some of the labs with all my teams, and we'll go over some of the different things we can do to defend the system and that kind of thing. And they usually have a battle plan on how they're going to, what they're going to check for, because they get points for finding those vulnerabilities. Now, the thing with Security Pro or TestOut in general, you can't use it during the competition because you're only allowed to use free resources in the competition. But we can use it in practice, and they can use the notes. They can print out the notes and they can use them during the competition because the notes are just basic terminology, things like that. But they just can't use it in the competition. So if you use test out with your students that's on a Cyber Patriot team. You just have to let them know that they're not allowed to open it up during a competition. All right, so this is what it looks like once you have become a coach and you're on the coach dashboard. So they have all these PowerPoints here. They don't really have, worksheets or anything like that, but these PowerPoints are very helpful, and you can kind of stem your instruction from these PowerPoints, especially if you already have computers that you can mimic some of these examples with, and the students can kind of go along with it. It's great when you are teaching networking too, because you're able to have access to the Cisco Net Academy, and they also will give you access to Packet Tracer. So you can create a class in Cisco Net Acad, and you also get access to the Microsoft Imagine Academy, so they're able to download a lot of these operating systems, like full operating systems with licenses and everything for free. So that's how they practice. So they have a lot of practice resources that you can also use in your classes. So lastly, for Cisco Network Academy, if you haven't already looked into this, I would definitely suggest it. This is also free for educators. They just kind of have to vet you. You can become a Cisco, it's a Cisco Academy partner basically, but it's like school-wide. So you can create a class. They also have a Linux class there that is great. So you can use this for your regular class, or you can use it for your Cyber Patriot teams, which is what it's designed for. So the networking portion of the Cyber Patriot competition is going to be used with the Cisco Network Academy. And so what I love about NetAcad is I love it for my Cyber Patriot teams, but I also love how I can have access to all of their classes. And so if I clicked on a class that's over on the left, what you see on the right is what would pop up. And so if you notice that what's popped up when I clicked on the Cybersecurity Essentials class is that now I have all of these PowerPoints, and I also have some unplugged activities in a file, and I have the Packet Tracer activities that are already created. So if I am if we're talking about access controls in my class, and we've gone over those sections in Security Pro, then I can use some of the unplugged activities and worksheets for access controls, and they'll have some Packet Tracer activities that may cover radius servers, setting up different types of servers, connecting and configuring DNS, and it helps them also get started in those Cisco commands. Okay, so after you've implemented everything and tried out stuff and you got your class together and you think you kind of know what's going on now, the end result is that we all want to have first-class students. And, even though we're all flying on the same flight, there's some students that you have that are perfectly fine with flying coach or economy, they're totally cool with that. But then you also have students who really strive to be first-class students. And so in using all of those different curriculum and resources with Security Pro being at the center of that, you're able to develop first-class students. And I just wanted to highlight real quickly one of the students that I had my first year. She was involved in everything. And so she really set the bar really high. So when I have other students, I kind of know what students are capable of now because of her. And these are just a list of a small list of her accomplishments, but she worked really hard, and she really loved the class, and she tried to learn about cybersecurity even outside of the class. And she was a recipient of the NSA internship, and it's kind of like a scholarship for service. She ended up going to Georgia Tech, and now she works at a cybersecurity research center. But I know that we all have these students that really strive and to work hard and to be that future cybersecurity professional. So even though we're on the same flight, we have students that, you know, are a little different. And so hopefully in implementing different resources into our curriculum, we can help the students accomplish what they want to accomplish no matter where they're at in the content area. I had a student who had autism, but he was highly functional, and I encouraged him to try to take the IT fundamentals exam anyways, and he took it and he passed it, and he was so excited, you know. And so you have students that have struggled through class and just trying to pass, even though you know they're capable of it, and still can come to the same outcome of getting certified. So real quickly, these are some other resources that I use. Spiral is really great, and CyberSiege, it's free, but you have to request access to it. And this is really awesome. It's a software you have to install, but it's kind of scenario-based, and it lets you pick different scenarios, whether it be physical security or malware and things like that, access controls. There's Packet Tracer. That's where you're just building the network and you're using the Cisco operating system basically for that. Mentimeter and Password Plunger is really great. It's more of like an Angry Birds, but for passwords. So just to highlight one of those, CryptTool is free, and if you haven't used CryptTool in your class yet, I definitely recommend you check it out. It will help the students visualize a lot of the cryptography concepts. You're able to do a brute force attack on an encryption key, and so the kids actually get to see that happening. And I actually learned about this tool in Security Pro. There was a video that they had where they used this tool, and I was like, I gotta go check that out. So I looked it up and I found out it was free, and I was like, that's even better. So this is awesome. There's 2 versions. Version 2 is kind of complicated, so I just chose version 1, but you may be interested in both. Okay, so lastly, I do have a lot of my resources in an online classroom that I started. It's in Edmodo, which I know is kind of old school, but we have Google Classroom, and I wasn't sure how many other teachers had Google Classroom, so I just kind of put everything in there. So here's the code for it if you want some more in-flight resources. I have folders there that has everything in it. I also started a folder that just said TestOut Conference, so a lot of the stuff that I talked about, I put in that folder. So you can kind of go to the one stop. I do have some handouts up here. I tried to pick a lesson from each of the free curriculum that I mentioned from Network Academy and from NYSERC. So if you're interested in that, it's up here. And then I also have my syllabus from my Cyber 1 class if you're interested in that. Okay, so I know that was fast and furious flight, but questions for me? No questions? Yeah.
What's a link to the resources that you have?
Well, you have to go into Edmodo, and if you haven't already created an account, then you have to create an account, and it's free. And then you type in the code, and then it'll pull up the classroom. So this is what it looks like. So then if you go to the folders, then I'll have the materials there. And I have some other cyber teachers that are in here. So it's a great way to share resources. If you go to the post, I think a teacher in our neighboring district, he posted a checklist for Ubuntu for his Cyber Patriot teams. I also post, like if I come across some cybersecurity scholarships, I post them in here. Another teacher posted some kind of like rainy day activities for IT fundamentals. So it's a great way to kind of share resources. I think there's one over there. I'll bring that.
Leanne?
Yes.
It's on, okay.
You can be a teacher and sign up.
Leanne, that was a great presentation. Question for you. You mentioned PLTW. There's a cost for training faculty. After that cost has been paid, is the curriculum free to use from that point on?
I think you have to pay for the curriculum too. So I think you pay for the curriculum and then you have to pay for training for your teachers.
Okay.
So each teacher that teaches it, they have to go to training too. So it's not like you can just train one teacher and then they can train the other ones. You have to go. I think before you can even get access, you have to go to that training. You have to have that on record. Yeah.
One of the things, I teach Security Plus, but I actually work in industry in this field. And one of the things I think that's missing, even from LabSim, so something that, take note, are the legal requirements for doing this. And a lot of the companies in the world miss it, and I think that a lot of the classes miss it. So I really recommend, and I teach it in my class, is going out to, it's called the NIST documents, and RMF. And I do a whole section in my class because people, it's really cool to go out and hack, and it's really cool to use the cyber tools, but why are you doing it? And that the legal documents, or the legal ramifications of why you do it, the legal ramifications of putting together network accreditation packages, and what happens to a company that has to pay millions or billions of dollars is really important. And so I think it's really important to incorporate that into our classes.
Yeah, yeah.
They're called the NIST 853 and 837 are really good documents that I really stress.
I think I listed the NIST website in the website folder. Yeah. And yeah, it's good to talk about that, especially with compliance. We talk about that in my class, that why we have rules. A lot of the rules that we have is because based on laws that we have. There's rules that we have at school based on laws that we have to uphold. Like we have to filter out the internet with certain things, that's a law, like you can't be exposed to that. And same with companies, they have compliance and they have to make sure that they're up to date with the regulations and the laws and other compliance, and we go over the ethical aspects of it too. There's certain ethics that you have to uphold even if you have that certification. But to keep it, you have to have the ethics behind it too.
I'd like to mention also at the collegiate level, you mentioned Cyber Patriot for middle school and high school. At the collegiate level, the comparable competitions are called CCDC. That's the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. And that was funded by a National Science Foundation grant. They have competitions that are statewide, which qualify a team to compete in a regional, and then they have a national as well. So that's something that collegiate level should consider. The website to get information on that is cssia.org, cassia.org.
Okay, I might have that website in there too, but I'll have to look because there are, like the Air Force Association puts on the Cyber Patriot competitions, but they also have a college version too. And then they have other cybersecurity competitions too in college. So it's good to get them started so they can also continue that in college. And also, just a real quick ad, Cyber Patriot competitions, since Northrop Grumman is the presenting sponsor, Northrop Grumman has set aside a block of internships just for Cyber Patriot teammates. And there's a website that I put up in the Google Classroom for my kids. And so the teammates can go and look at that, and you get kind of priority over those internships because they know that you already know what they want you to know. All right, so that was our last question. So I guess our flight has landed. So thank you for joining me.